Holy shit, you're so
You're actually
strong.
so light.
Freaking hell.
Woo! Everyone, it is a long time coming, but I have teamed up with Catherine.
Hiya.
And today we are going to be doing a video all about stretching.
Yay.
So she's going to take it away, so I'm just going to let her introduce herself and give you a bit of background.
Cool. So my name's Catherine and I've been a trainer for about 2 years now, but my background in fitness is really from a dance background. I started dancing since I was a young girl, did pretty much every style you can think of. Went to dance school for 3 years and I learned so much about anatomy, biomechanics, nutrition and things like that, especially practically as I was exercising. And then went overseas for a couple of years, danced abroad, and then came back and decided I wanted to kind of switch into the fitness industry. Have been loving it ever since.
Yes!
Yay!
I hope you guys enjoy this video, and as always, if you do, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and smile.
Before we get into this kind of workout breakdown, talking about injury prevention, things that you can do to prime your mind and your muscles before you exercise, I thought I'd just say a quick pre-disclaimer that both Julie and I completely believe in, and that's if you do experience pain while you're exercising, or you have in the past, and you're kind of unsure with what to do, don't just take advice from random friends or even from this video. Go see a physio first. The most important thing, especially with clients, if they're experiencing pain and they haven't told me beforehand, or we don't know what is the cause of it, then you get that diagnosis first, and then you know that everything else you're doing is supporting that injury, if it's an injury at the time, or to prevent further injury ongoing. Because usually a niggle is a sign that something's not right, and you can take that as a warning, or you can let it progress and then become an injury. So I think prevention's always best. Get physio's help first, and then use this information to help you while you're working out in your daily exercise. So
Let's get started.
So I thought I'd just quickly break down kind of like your workout and how different parts of it should be structured. And depending on what muscles you're working for that day, or the particular struggles you might have with your own body, it can be a little bit more variable, especially like some days you'll be a lot sore, so you'll need to spend a bit more time on the mobilizations. Other days you can kind of just run through them and just get into the workout. But this is kind of how you break up your workout. So to begin with, it's always the warm-up, getting oxygen through your lungs, warming up your body, actually internally making sure that your body's a good temperature. So then once you've done your warm-up, you want to jump into some dynamic stretches, which kind of makes sure that your muscles are starting to loosen off, and then you're also lubricating the joints, and when that happens you release synovial fluid to the joints. And so when you go to do weight exercises, your joints are kind of like smoother and they're less likely to cause injury. So I'll explain that a bit later and show you what mobilizations I kind of use. But then what I do after mobilizations is you actually need to do activations. So activations is the thing where you're spending time making sure that you know which muscles need to wake up, especially if you can't feel a muscle working. Then you need to kind of just prime your mind, because your mind is a huge powerhouse for your body, and you need to prime the muscles, especially the kind of sleepy ones. And like when you're walking around or you're sitting down all day, often you get into the gym and you just try to train, but you've actually got no awareness of your body, and you need to take that time to just kind of zone into your body and make sure that you know the right muscles are firing up and working. So we'll go through some of that later. Then comes into if you need to, you can do foam rolling, which is going to release the fascia. Sometimes you'll do that beforehand as well. And it's like a massage, but usually with foam rolling you just want to be careful, because that kind of work is best to be done after, if you're going to spend a really long time on it. If you're going to spend like 20 minutes really breaking down the muscle, you don't want to break down the muscle and release those toxins before you work out, because then it can be just a bit stressful on your body. But if you're just doing a quick go over on the areas that need to loosen off, that's fantastic, that's fine. Trigger point releasing is also a really fantastic way of actually getting knots and contracted muscle fiber out. But that again, I wouldn't use at the beginning, I'd use at the end. That's more for like care afterwards. Once you're into the exercise, let's say whatever you're doing for that day, you're doing weights, you're doing cardio, that's kind of like your exercise bulk part. Won't go into that because we all kind of understand that. But afterwards, that's when you do your stretching work, and it's really important to do it. Just get in the habit, guys, of just doing your stretching straight after
Can't
you
stress
exercise.
this enough. It is so important. I know, I've been there, I've tried not stretching, and your body takes a toll. It's so important to give your body that time to actually stretch out after a workout.
Yeah, so 100% of the time I tell all my clients, after you finish your workout, do your stretches, and you're contracting your muscles. When you're introducing weight training, you're literally going like this to the muscle. They're contracting. If you do, let's say, 3 weight sessions a week, 45 minutes, how much stretching time have you used? None. That's like all that more load on your muscles, and you haven't evened it out by lengthening the muscles. So stretching you do when your muscles are warm. So yeah, I'm going to use Anjuli here as an example of this conversation topic. So let's say, Anjuli, how many times a week do you train? 5 times, and they're all weights based? Yes! Good
Yeah.
That's awesome. But, so let's say maybe Anjuli might have not have done some stretching to begin with. She's like, I'm going to go hard on these weights, it's feeling really good. Over time, your body it takes a toll on your body, and your muscles just contract. Because if you think of weight training, it is adding muscle, but it's making those fibers tighter and stronger, which is fantastic. But it makes them more susceptible to injury, and sometimes when you're contracting, getting stronger, your muscles are getting less flexible and you're losing mobility. And so the reason why that's like quite alarming is because when you lose mobility, I mean, it has two kind of negative interferences with your training. One, you're going to have less range of motion, and any movement, let's say you got really tight in your quads, hip flexors, glutes, perhaps you wouldn't be able to get such a good depth in your squat, which means you can't activate the muscles properly and exert the right amount of force you need to get back up and kind of have the kind of gains you want, growth you want, because you're not getting full range. But that's kind of like not as alarming as the other issue, which is more likely to have an injury. Because those muscles are tight, it would be like that kind of chewing gum. So let's say Anjuli's quads are really, really tight. They're like really contracted, and she goes to do maybe like a lunge, and she can feel it a lot. That muscle is so tight that if you put a weight that was too heavy on it, it's like that piece of gum, and you put just a little bit of too much weight on it, it would just snap like that. If her muscle was a little bit more flexible, a little bit more mobile, because she's been doing her stretching and her muscles are used to kind of going to the end range of mobility, then they would be more elastic, and they wouldn't be as susceptible to just snapping under that pressure, under that load. That's why as you're weight training, you're also trying to keep your flexibility and keep mobility, and also just being aware when you're weight training that if you're going too heavy too soon, the load on the fibers and on the muscle, it's so susceptible to injury if you don't progress it as your muscles are able to.
Yeah, and that's also why I always say that it's so important when you're in the gym and you're training to listen to your body and to not keep increasing the weight without working on things like stretching and form.
Totally, and like a really easy one to remember with weight loading, because a lot of the time people are scared to go too heavy. They're the opposite, they don't go heavy enough. A good thing to remember, and I think Anjuli says this a lot in her posts, is whatever rep range you're being programmed for. So let's say the program says 3 sets times 12. You're trying to hope for the last 2 to 3 to be a struggle, but not so much that you're losing form. So you're kind of like,
yeah, so it should be hard, but
Yeah.
you should maintain that form and be able to get through it.
yeah. Just go over mobility, activations, and kind of show you some examples and actually explain to you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. So mobility, whenever you're mobilizing an area, make sure it's for the area of training. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do leg mobility, because let's just say we love legs.
Everyone loves training
We all
legs.
love training legs. So I'll show you some good mobility exercises you can do to make sure everything's loose. So that's another way of thinking of it. It's just mobilizing, making sure the joints and the muscles are loose, and it's kind of warming up the fascia and just getting the joints ready. The activations are priming those muscles again, and then the stretching is what's going to improve your flexibility. Okay, so at the end, that's what the time you want to spend really making your muscles longer and more flexible, not in the mobilizations. They're just to prepare and prime.
Perfect.
Cool, so this is a really good mobilization for I also use a bit of back for this one as well. So if you want to come this way, you go opposite hand to leg to the ground in a deep lunge. So here, this is really opening up hip flexor, quad, and on this side you'll feel glutes once you get into this part here. You're going to thread your left hand under and through that little window.
Wow.
Touch the shoulder, that's it. And then you're opening up to the side. So when you open on the side, it's opening your chest, but really you're going to feel it down your left leg through your glutes and through the glute med kind of area.
Amazing.
And then you're coming back, coming to the other side. So that's a really good one to do. You can kind of do this one on the spot, or I always do it down a little lunge stretch.
Okay. I feel that right through. Shows how inflexible I am.
And I find most people who do like lots of leg presses always have really tight hip flexors, and then QLs as well. So that one there, making sure your hip flexors are like not too tight, that's a really good one to mobilize, especially before squats. So another one for a hip flexor that you can do this one kind of standing, and it's just a lunge, but you're literally just taking that opposite arm, so it's this one here, the same arm as the leg that's stretching and elongating it, and then making sure your pelvis is slightly tucked under so that you're really stretching through the hip flexor here.
Oh, I feel it right through
Yeah.
there. Amazing.
So you don't really want to be stretching your obliques, you actually want to be stretching your hip flexor. So you can do this one just kneeling as well, you'll feel it there, but again with mobilizations, you're not trying to stay in the stretch, you're trying to kind of move through it, because you're warming up the muscle and you're also kind of warming up the joints.
I feel it right through there.
So hip flexors are really good to loosen off.
So would you do that movement like a active type movement for
Yep,
it?
so you're coming on and off the movement. So it's just, and as well with mobilizations, each time you do it, you can kind of try to stretch a wee bit further and actually push the muscle just a wee bit more. You do want to be feeling like that slight bit of pain, not like a stretching pain because you're out of it straight away. If you stop and stay, that's static stretching, and we don't do that to the very end.
Perfect.
Yeah. This one's a really good one for the groin. So you just go into like a wide kind of sumo stance. Depending on how tight your groin is, you can go lower or higher. So I'll show you. Normally, all you need to do is kind of that, and you should be feeling it on the leg that's lengthened. So you should be feeling it through there. So you want to kind of keep your hips square and make sure that you're in the middle of your 2 feet. Yeah. So, and then you just go from side to side. Can you feel it through?
Yeah, I feel it right through there.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like adductors. That area again gets quite tight, and for me, like I have to kind of go down a wee bit lower, but that's okay. And if you can even go only here, that's fine. It's only so that you're again mobilizing it. As you do it, you should be able to get a little bit more range, and that's where you just want to keep pushing it every time you go a little bit lower.
You can tell who's been doing their stretch work and who's a dancer.
I know it's funny, sometimes I forget, I'm like, oh, don't feel bad. Another one for groin that's quite good, and this one's really good for like lower back and QLs, but just don't go crazy with it, because sometimes, so I'll show you side on and then front ways. You go into like a wide stance again, and then you press with your opposite arm that you're looking towards. That doesn't make any sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of go through, and what I do is I actually really press that hand against and grab my thigh, and then use it to stretch all throughout my lower back and twist, and then you're opening your groin as you're coming down like that, popping back up, go to the other side, grab both of your knees, go into like a wide kind of sumo stance, and if we're going to stretch out this side here, you're going to put all your pressure into your right hand side and twist and look towards your left.
I like that.
Yep, and then actually kind of press and push into there, and then keep your body up a little bit more upright.
I like that.
Yeah. So can you feel that through here and through your groin?
Yep.
And then coming back up.
So like that.
And twist it.
Oh, okay.
Just so that you
yeah,
get a bit more of
push,
a, get more
stretch.
of a grip on your leg, because it's your leg that you're pushing off of.
Oh yeah, so down, pushing,
Yeah.
and across, and all through here.
Yeah, you should. And so it's a twist and it's an opening. So the groin's opening and you're twisting through your lower back. And so then as you do the mobilization, as you get into it, you kind of pop down, feel a bit of a stretch, up and back onto the other side.
Awesome.
But again, that one don't go too crazy with, because lower backs are a bit niggly and you don't want to like overstretch it. A really good one for the glutes. This one's really easy. So what you want to do is you bring your leg up, foot into you. You're taking the same arm as the knee. So left or right side pressing down, and then you're going underneath the ankle and pulling up.
Oh, that feels good.
And then you just chuck it down. So again, mobilize. It's just like a stretch, but you just do it quickly. Oh, you can be a bit rough with yourself.
Yeah.
Like that. Another go-to for the quads. and hip flexors and hamstrings is this one here. Just lunging forward and coming back.
Okay, so lunge forward.
Yeah, so you just lunge forward, and at that point, you're going to feel it through the quads and hip flexor. And coming back, you just tilt, press, and try to feel the hamstring.
Yeah.
That's it. And again, you just go through those.
How many times roughly would you say someone should do that?
Usually I just do 10 to 20. It really depends on how tight it is. You should be feeling as though the muscle is loosening off. So if you feel like it's not loosening off, probably need to make sure at the end of that session you do a little bit more release and flexibility work. And as well, when you do mobilizations that's one-legged like this, if you feel in your body that you're tighter on one side, make a mental note of that. And at the end, you need to work on that one side longer and kind of try to bring up imbalances, because imbalances, they're a pain in the ass. Basically, you want to try and keep your body even. So we're going to talk about activations. So I'll just explain why we're doing them first, and then I'm going to use Julie as an example on how to fire up the glutes, core, and kind of deactivate for Julie her quads, because she feels that they are always kind of active and quite strong. So basically activations is making sure that, for one, you've got the neural pathway working. So often, if you've never understood how to activate one muscle in your body, you don't actually know how to control your brain to activate that muscle. So if I were to say flex your bicep, some people, they may not actually know how to get that muscle working. So most people, biceps quite easy, but sometimes other muscles to locate in your body and your brain is just a little bit harder. And often what happens is when you go into a more complicated exercise like a deadlift or a squat, you don't know if you're using the right muscle to do the movement, and if you haven't made that connection first before you actually do the movement, if you're not completely in tune with your body, the stronger muscle will always overtake. So basically the simplest one to do for the glutes before you do like a squat or a deadlift is a glute bridge, but making sure you really know that you're hitting a full hip hinge and that you're not doing it incorrectly, so that you're not getting the full engagement through your glutes. So let's have a look at a glute bridge. Why don't you demonstrate, Julie?
Yes.
So you can use a band to make sure that you're also working through your abductors and kind of external rotators, but how about we just talk about the bridge first?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so to make sure that she's really firing up the glutes, we're just going to make sure that when you come up into the bridge, that you're driving through your heels.
Yeah.
So just come up. Okay, so as you can see, Angelia's got a really natural, good understanding of her body, and what I'm looking for when people are doing bridges is that this line from their knee to their shoulder is flat. As well, I'm looking at the pelvic kind of alignment here. So as you can see, Julie, she's put her pelvis in a really good position. She's slightly tucked under, and can you feel that your glutes are really switched on? So the problem, so come down. Now I'm going to get you to do it in a kind of a, I can feel it.
Yeah.
I'll get you to do it in what I call a very good way. I'll just show you what I see often when people get tired. It's a lot easier to get tired when you're doing it with weight. So when people get up and they kind of get here, and see how I haven't fully rotated and tucked my pelvis under and then lifted from that position. So often you'll see people kind of doing it like that, and you can see the ribs are flared and you're not engaging your core and you're not actually firing. The full hip extension is when you're getting all the way up and you can't actually get your hips higher without arching your back.
Perfect.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Cool.
A really good way to do that is just glute bridge. You can come up and down through your spine, and then you can hold it there for about 10-20 seconds. So rolling up through the spine, and yeah, that's it. See her core's nice and engaged through here, and it's not flared. So show a flared core. Oh, do you know? Yeah, so see how there's no engagement there, it's not protected, and her back's kind of arching. So come back into that more safe position. Yeah, perfect. So that's all you need. And then as well, now come back down and try drive up through your toes.
Like that?
Yeah. Where do you feel that?
Ups or hammies?
Yeah, calves and hams, okay? Hammies will also work when you're doing it through the heels, but if you're pushing up on your toes, guaranteed, look at how much her calves are flexing. Come back down, drive up through the heels and lift your toes a wee bit. And now can you feel your glutes fired on straight away?
Yeah.
So you never want to do that, but it's just to show you, because when you do that, you kind of feel it through the front of the shins. So these are just common areas people do. Come down, take your feet out a little bit more, go way longer, and try it like that.
Hammies.
Yeah, hammies. That position's way too loading on the hamstring. You want to make sure that your heels are almost underneath your knees. Cool, guys. So that was just like a really small example of so many different activations you can do. But the important thing is that you are doing it right and you can feel the muscle that you're supposed to be feeling, and you can actually connect that and kind of flex the muscle and make sure you can feel that it's working the correct one, because otherwise you're just going to activate the wrong muscle. So it's kind of counterintuitive. So another really important muscle to make sure you know how to use and activate before things like squats, before your session, is your core. So an activation at that point in time, you shouldn't be tiring your core out. You should just be making sure that you're priming it right so that it's really powerful and strong when you go do compound movements or any movement on top of it.
Okay,
Cool.
let's do it.
So we're going to just go into a plank to start with. What I want you to do is squeeze your glutes and slightly tuck your pelvis and lift your hips an inch. Okay, there is a strong plank. Okay, before her glutes were kind of, you see how they're like flexed now? And this here has elongated, so your spine is in a better position. And you can see now there's a little slight muscle twitch, so we're kind of working our endurance, which is awesome. And can you feel that your abdomen's kind of locked out through here? And I can actually press, and I can feel that her rectus abdominis is switched on. Fantastic, coming down. Okay, now I'm just going to show you a couple of the common faults so that you can see like what looks wrong, but that was fantastic. What we did there just activated your core in right ways that people do it that won't be right. So here it's sinking too low at the hips, that's the common one, the back here, or you're up too high and you're not really switching on your core at all. Plank is too hard for an activation. I'm going to show you another one. So this is just a slightly modified version. Take one hand and leg out and up. Here you can feel that your core's activating, and again you want to make sure you're not sagging out like that. Okay, opposite hand to leg extending away from you. That's it. Can you feel your core's working to stabilize you there?
Yeah.
And coming back in. And so on this one, it's just really important to try to keep your hips still as you're doing it, and feeling like your belly button's plugging up to your spine and kind of holding your whole midsection in. Let's go on the other side.
And then, so would you alternate between the two?
Yeah, leg doesn't need to go too high.
Yeah. There.
Yeah, and you can feel your core. Yeah, so long as you're feeling your core and your mind's like connected into that, then that's all that matters.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that seems like a silly thing to do, but honest to God, that will help you understand your core and your pelvic alignment before you do something like a squat. The other alternative to that one there is doing things like this, just lifting the knee and taking like little kind of bear crawls and making sure that your core is supporting you so you're not sagging around. Yeah, sweet. So now we're going to get into our actual stretching. So this is the time where you can improve your flexibility. Again, make sure your muscles are warm so you get the most out of it. Warm muscles are the best to stretch with. And if you're doing it at home, if you've forgotten your stretching, just maybe do a little bit of light cardio to warm them up prior. Okay, so we're just going to go through some stretches that you can do at the end of your session and just talk through it so you know that you're actually getting the most out of your stretching. So let's start with a lunge. At the start of a stretch, you can always feel this immediate pain. And that's this proprioceptive kind of organ that's within your body, and it's called the Golgi tendon organ. And it always has this response straight away that you're in pain and you should stop, and it's to protect you. Okay, so it's a good response. But when we're stretching, we can actually override it, and you have to override it to continue stretching, continue improving. So as you've been sitting here, has that gotten easier, or is it still quite painful?
I am quite unflexible, so it's a little bit sore, but it does get easier.
Yeah. And some muscles like this one, it's not really easing off just yet for me too.
Yeah.
But that's not the wrong thing. But, and over time, most muscles, when you do them singularly, they ease off and you can actually stretch further. So what I always do is say, like, so here we're in our lunge, we're just sitting and talking, but now if we're going to stretch properly, this is how I would do it. You're coming down, you're going to breathe in and out, try to stretch a little further. Breathing in and out a little further. Breathing in and out a little further, or deeper into the hips. Out a little further. Breathing in out a little further. Good, coming back up. Ooh. The great thing about breath is that it actively relaxes you. And when you're in pain, your natural reaction is to tense up and go, and when you're like that, and when your muscle tenses up, you can't stretch. And as well, there's a natural kind of pattern to your breathing that flows with the pain and the stretch. So if you hit a kind of sore part in the stretch and it's like you can't go further, often if you take a couple more breaths, it eases off and you can keep going. The best one to show that kind of response is the hamstring. The hamstring is usually the most painful area to stretch. So for example here, just keep your foot relaxed. The same thing if you're breathing in and out, the immediate stretch that you do, you'll feel like that's painful. You kind of stop at that immediate pain. But then if you hold it there and deeply breathe in and out, you can feel that it eases off. And then each breath in and out, you can go a little bit further. And I find a nice thing to do when you're stretching is play relaxing music. If you can do anything to help you relax and get you in a state where you're not tense, that's going to help your stretching like so much. And stretching, for it to be effective, should be anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute. So just going like that and being like, oh, ow, it's painful, moving on, is not enough. You actually have to sit into your stretches and allow time for them. So yeah, guys, I hope that helped clear up a little bit of your questions and explanation of what you're doing and when.
And so I really want to thank Catherine for taking time out of her day from training all her clients to actually do this video with me. It was so informative. I learned a lot and I'm sure you guys did as well. And Catherine actually has a stretching book available, so I will put all the details in the description below for this video because I think it is so important, and clearly we've only just scratched like the surface of everything that you need to be doing around your training. So thank you.
Yay.
And of course I'll share her Instagram name here so you guys can go and follow her and follow up on all her content as well, because it's so informative, and I think it's really important to make sure that when you are online, you are following people that add to your fitness journey and that help educate you on your journey.
Yeah, thanks Anjuli, I love you. I'm also a Fitspo fan of you, and I am not quite so good as Anjuli at content, but that's my goal this year, to get better. So thanks guys for listening in, and I hope something has just been like, that makes sense.
Yes, bye guys.